Welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined today by double barrel action out of our pen, Sean Zerillo and Collin Whitchurch, looking at the Tuesday slate and the bigs. We also have Grant Neiffer coming in at the end of the episode with his home run props. Let's get right into it because we have a full card here. So many games to discuss on Tuesday. Let's start with the best bets. Sean, you like under in the fish and cards, and you sweat it out last night. It was 8.5. You end up getting that across the finish line in a 7-1 win for the Redbirds. So you're back for more here. The Ageless Wonder Sonny Gray in his 14th season in the bigs as a starter. This is a buy low spot on him. Last two outings, 8 1/3 innings total, 14 earned, 4 home runs allowed. Sandy on the other side of this matchup, I know trade deadline is looming, so there's a lot of conversation around many players at this point. Could this be his last start for the Fish? The Dodgers, the Cubs, perhaps? Rumors are flying around. I know that obviously his trade value has been diminished throughout the season, but he did just look great against the Padres. 7 innings pitch, no earned, 4 Ks on an efficient 98 pitches. So one buy low, one potential hot hand who's headed out the door. Talk me through this under between Miami and St. Louis.
Yeah, I anticipate this is going to be Sandy's last start, even though he has a club option through 2027. So still under team control for another couple seasons, even beyond this one. But it does seem like the Marlins may trade him at this point. I mean, you have to capitalize on a guy who previously had Tommy John just in the event that he could get injured again, right? Just trade him while he is healthy right now. And over the past month plus, Sandy looks like he's coming back into form. We talked about throughout the large majority of the year, these stuff plus ratings had come back to where they were pre-injury, which was very confirming that Sandy would eventually get back to his peak self. And now you've seen over the past month, the command started to come back. Through May, Sandy had about I think I want to say a 2% strikeout minus walk rate. Well, he had a 12% walk rate through May. But I think his strikeout minus walk rate was right around league average. Like strikeouts and walks were very comparable. In June and July, that walk rate has gone down by 2/3. He's walking 4% of hitters compared to 12% previously, and the location plus rating has shot up from 93 to 107. So I think seeing these stuff now combined with the location and the stuff combined with the command speaks to the potential Sandy has to pitch to the rest of the way because he has 5 pitches with over 100 stuff plus 107 on the sinker, 101 on the fastball, 103 on the changeup, 109 on the slider. And what I find most interesting, his curveball grades out as his best pitch, 118 stuff plus on the curve. He had never thrown it more than 2% of the time. He's throwing it 15% of the time this season. So Sandy undergoing some pitch mix changes as well. And what I'm really interested to see is if the Mets or the Dodgers or another team get their hands on him, whether they modify his arsenal a little bit. Because I said 5 pitches better than 100 stuff plus. You could essentially do whatever you want with him. And the Mets are better than probably anybody at taking pitchers and modifying their sequencing, modifying some grips like the slider, like they did with Manaea, and getting a little bit more out of them. So elite stuff, elite command. I don't think he's optimizing even most of the stuff yet because that strikeout rate has not fully bounced back. And I think there's a team out there who could probably unlock a little bit more of that strikeout rate. So that is very scary potential and very scary upside that a lot of teams would want to gamble on right now. And I absolutely want the Mets to gamble on that at this point. You mentioned with Sonny Gray getting lit up in the past 2 starts. No walks, though, in those 2 starts. 10 strikeouts, no walks, running a career low 4% walk rate, nearly half of his career mark, which is closer to 8%. So even though he got hit in those last 2 starts, not at all concerned about Sonny. I think that's just poor variance getting hit that hard. But the thing that I like most in this game about the under, over the past 30 days, these are the number 1 and number 2 bullpens in expected FIP, number 1 and number 3 in strikeout minus walk, number 1 and number 7 in bot ERA. The Cardinals, number 1, strikeout minus walk, expected FIP, and bot ERA over the past month. And all of the high leverage relievers here should be available on either side of this matchup. As you said, the Cardinals winning a 7-1 game yesterday was, I think, 5-0 in the seventh inning, or sorry, it was 3-0, 2-0 in the seventh inning. Cardinals put up 5 runs. And then, of course, we get to the ninth inning. The Marlins get 1 run in. and then get another guy to second on a defensive indifference. And I'm sitting there sweating this under with 2 outs in the ninth on the back of two consecutive defensive indifference plays. Thankfully, it got there. But oh man, there's nothing less fun than sweating an under in a blowout after a guy goes to second on defensive indifference because you're like, this team doesn't even deserve this. And now I'm one, squib away from losing this under. So yeah, that's never a fun sweat. But the under today, running it back, under 8 down to 7.5 at -105. I project this closer to 7.1.
Colin, it's good to see you, brother. Let's get you involved with your best bet. You're going over 8.5 between Arizona and Detroit. Brandon Pfaadt on one side of this matchup has been pitching well as of late. He was plagued by the long ball early in the season, but he's only surrendered one home run in his last five starts. But we know he's not really going to go past 95 pitches. That's probably where he's going to max out. So that brings the Snakes bullpen into play, which is one of the worst in baseball. So that certainly is going to aid the over once they get into the pen. Casey Mize on the other side of this matchup, though, has looked lost lately. Last two starts, 10 earned across just 7 innings, and he gave up that bomb to Corbin Carroll in the All-Star game. So he could be a meltdown candidate here. Anything else you're seeing in terms of the fundamentals of this over?
Yeah, so another team where we have to watch the trade deadline. I should mention that Sandy Alcantara's game with Arizona here today as well. Keep an eye on these transactions.
Yep,
This is a good a time as any to remind people to bet listed pitcher, particularly if you're betting a game like Marlins Cardinals. If Alcantara gets scratched last second, you don't want to get stuck with a bet that you wouldn't have made if Alcantara wasn't on the mound.
absolutely.
Arizona obviously has already tipped their hand. They're sellers. They traded Josh Naylor last week. The big concern here, if you're betting on Arizona's offense, is Eugenio Suarez potentially not being in the lineup. But I've actually already factored that in. He got hit by a pitch yesterday. They're
Hmm.
probably going to be really cautious with him leading up to the deadline, even if they don't trade him today. Would not be a shock to see him on the bench. Um, but I really think that the Tigers finally snapped out of their offensive funk last night. Obviously, have just been playing terribly. We cashed some bets on them against the Pirates last week, or against them with the Pirates last week. Uh, but they looked better offensively last night. Granted, it was against Eduardo Rodriguez, who is bad. And the Tigers' offense is much better against lefties. But this is the same team that was shut down last week by another mediocre lefty in Bailey Falter. So maybe they've actually turned a corner. And I'm happy to bet on them to continue that against Fott. He's kind of settled in as like a mid fours ERA guy, innings eater, number 4-5 type starting pitcher. Not the kind of frontline guy people thought he would be during his hot postseason run 2 years ago when he was a rookie. You mentioned Casey Mize. I successfully faded him last week against the Pirates. He actually missed more bats than he has in a while against Pittsburgh, but still got dinged for 4 runs in only 4 innings. He allowed 11 base runners, so he was actually lucky to leave that start with only 5 runs allowed, one unearned run, so 4 earned runs and five total. Um, these are both teams that could look a lot different in a few days. It's going to be interesting to see what Detroit does. Obviously, made a small deal for Chris Paddock to help bolster that rotation, the back end of that rotation yesterday. Maybe work out of the bullpen. We'll see what happens. Reese Olson, obviously out for the season, is a big ding. But this comes down to the offenses. Even if Suarez sits, and even if Arizona sells, all of their pieces that are sellable here, they're still gonna today and post deadline sit there with Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, and Geraldo Perdomo at the top of the lineup, which is a really good and formidable top of the lineup. So I like this lineup against Mize and against Detroit's very shaky bullpen. I expect them to make some additions there as well. You mentioned the Arizona bullpen, just decimated by injuries. They had Puck go down. They had Martinez go down. Shelby Miller was really good for them. He went down. I think Jalen Beeks is still on the injured list. Uh, so yeah, I think Detroit's offense can show that yesterday was kind of them turning the corner. We saw them regress a little bit over the last couple weeks. That was expected, going from playing at a 100+ win pace to maybe a mid to low 90s win pace, which is more reasonable with their true talent. But they should be able to beat up on Fott and this crew of below average Arizona relievers. And then, yeah, Mize is someone I'm looking to fade on a start to start basis for right now. So over eight and a
Should
half.
just
I'll bet that to 9 as well.
just want to mention that Tigers mostly struggling without Kerry Carpenter in the lineup. Kerry Carpenter came back into the fold yesterday, struck out twice, went over three, but
Yeah.
him being back in the middle of their order, especially against a right-handed pitcher, makes a humongous difference for their offensive quality. So yeah, having Kerry and Green back to back, just I don't know. It's like it just extends the lineup so much. Once you get to 6, 7, 8, 9, and you got Wenceel Perez and Dylan Dingler, like Zach McKin, all-star Zach McKinstry. I don't want to disrespect Zach McKinstry too much, but yeah, it's the back half of the lineup was really weak. So just adding your best hitter back in there changes the look of it completely.
Let's look now at your favorite underdog, Sean. You're going to start with the Rays at plus 175. You also like over 8.5 in that game. You're picking your spot here to fade Max Fried, coming off that blister on his left index finger. Last start against the Blue Jays, he was hard hit, scatter shot with his command at times. Strikeouts were down. He's clearly gettable, in your opinion, in this spot. If the Rays bats can do some damage and score off of him, you like the massive Joe Boyle to provide what, 3 or 4 quality innings before they get into that average Rays bullpen. Speaking of Boyle, though, real quick, let's bring you in here, Colin, because you like over on his Ks. Are you worried at all about how far he goes in his pitch count in this one, vis-a-vis how it can impact his overall potential to go over on the strikeouts?
Well, Boyle's been a starter for most of his career. He's obviously thrown in relief a couple times in July, but just at the beginning of this month, he threw 90 something pitches in bulk. So I'm not significantly worried. I don't think they're going to let him go 6, 7 innings, but I don't see any reason why we can't get 5 innings out of Joe Boyle tonight. He's someone I've always been intrigued by his swing and miss stuff. I'm excited to see what he can do for Tampa now that he's entered the rotation with Taj Bradley getting sent down to the minors. We got a taste of Boyle a little bit the last 2 years with the Athletics. You're forgiven if you missed it, if you missed a lot of Athletics baseball over the last 2 years, but he missed plenty of bats while pitching in Oakland. I'm allowed to say Oakland right now because they were Oakland when he pitched for them. He just had no earthly idea where the ball was going. He threw 47 and 2/3 innings for the Athletics last year. Struck out 56, which is really good. He walked 40. He walked almost a batter an inning. The Rays are one of the most trustworthy organizations in terms of fixing pitchers. I can't wait to see if the gains he made in AAA Durham for most of the season carry over to what will just be his, like I said, his second start for the Rays. His first start of the season was way back in April. He made a last-second spot start against the Braves and struck out 7 in 5 innings. As I mentioned, his bulk relief appearance earlier this month, he struck out 7 again in 5 innings. He pitched the 3rd through the 8th innings against the Twins. So I'm not worried too much about what the Rays do with his leash here. I think that they let him go for as long as he goes. If he continues to miss bats, if he can stay out of the walk department, limit himself to 1 or 2 walks a start instead of 4 or 5, he can give them length. And the Yankees, for as formidable as their offense can be, they swing and miss at times. They swing and miss plenty. And I don't think the books quite know what to do with the K total of a pitcher like Boyle. Again, with the concerns that you just mentioned about maybe the Rays keep him on a short leash. I don't think they do. So it's sitting at 4.5 right now, the strikeout total. I love this over. I think this has potential ladder potential. If you want to go up to 6, 7, 8 with him, increase your risk by all means. Bet responsibly, but over 4.5 is a bet I absolutely love in this game, and I imagine that Sean is on the Boyle bandwagon in some way, shape, or form, given where he's at with his underdog.
Yeah, I think Boyle, I mean, to your point about the Rays just getting their hands on pitchers and making them better. Boyle, last 2 times he was in AAA with the Athletics, 19% walk rate, 17% walk rate. This year in AAA with the Rays, closer to 10%, which is still not great, closer to the major league average. But for him, that is tremendous because he has such ridiculous stuff. And basically everything is like 3 true outcomes with Joe Boyle. And strikeout, walk, we're going to hit the ball hard. I think he has the potential to shut down this Yankees offense, certainly. But the over for me and the Rays bet for me is more about Max Fried because you mentioned the blister, Mike. That was before the All-Star break. Then he came back after the All-Star break and had another rough outing. And he's walked 3 batters in consecutive starts this season. Fried last year went on the IL with forearm neuritis. That was part of the reason why I was so shocked that the Yankees gave him a 7-year deal. It's like this guy had a forearm injury last year, which is usually a precursor to Tommy John surgery. Now you're giving him a 7-year deal. He was obviously excellent through the first few months of the regular season. The Yankees helped modify some of his pitch grips, changed his slider a little bit, which led to this mid-career breakout level jump, whatever you want to call it. But he did have that forearm injury last year. We're getting pretty deep into the season now. And oh, hey, now you've walked 3 batters in consecutive starts. Well, last year, Fried walked 3 batters in 12 of his 29 starts. He had only done that 6 times from the 2021 to 2023 seasons. So something he did 6 times over about 60 starts from 2021 to 2023, 70 starts, 80, I think it was closer to 75 starts. Something he did 6 times across 75 starts from 2021 to 2023. He did 12 times in 29 starts last year. Didn't do it until his past 2 starts this year. And oh, by the way, location plus rating through June 105, location plus rating in July 95. So I do think there are some major red flags that Max Fried, even beyond the blister, may be dealing with a forearm injury underneath the surface because the metrics are moving in very similar territory to where they moved last season after his IL stint. So I think there are significant concerns about Max Fried and his command right now, both in terms of the internal potential injury and the external issue with the blister. I think Fried over walks today could be interesting. It's not that the Rays are a particularly patient offense. I just don't think he has the command right now. And then once you get into the bullpens here, the Rays do have the bullpen advantage. Last 30 days, Yankees 28th in both strikeout minus walk rate and expected FIP. Rays closer to 10th in both metrics. Going to be very hot today, too. 94 degrees in New York, 5 to 7 mile an hour winds blowing out to left field. So even though I'm down on the Yankees offense pretty significantly without Judge, and I laid out that case yesterday based upon how they hit 2 years ago without him, ranking as a bottom 5 offense without him in the lineup, I make the total still about 9.25. I like the over 8.5 up to 9 at even money. And then I like the Rays down to plus 150. Sorry, I like the Rays down to plus 160. I projected them closer to plus 150. So Rays and over in this game. And I think potentially a Fried over walks in addition to the Boyle over strikeouts could be a move in the prop market.
All right, stop the presses, Colin. Let's see here. He has a Chicago White Sox underdog play here, plus 170. You also like him first 5 at plus 155 and over 8.5. Sean is right there with you
Yeah.
on the over and the money line. The Sox just knocked around Sanchez, who had been absolutely dealing for the Phillies, and now they draw Luzardo, who's really struggled after a hot start to the season. His breaking stuff remains, on the plus side, but his fastball is getting pounded. Batters are now hitting 311 and slugging 477 against his four-seamer this year. On the other side of this matchup, we got Jonathan Cannon, who, when he avoids giving up the long ball, he's actually been pretty serviceable this year. His consistency worries me a little bit. But can you walk me through this, Colin, beyond the home cooking of, being able to come on the show and back your beloved White Sox? It seems like this is a good spot to fade the Phillies.
Yeah, it's a running joke that I find a way to bring up the White Sox in every episode I'm on. But if you go back and look, it's rarely in the mindset of betting on them as a big underdog. So I feel like it's not quite as home cooking as people might think. But yeah, last night I texted our old friend Anthony DeBundo last night. I let him know the White Sox were the sharp side against Christopher Sanchez. Because this White Sox offense is absolutely destroying left-handed pitching right now. Yeah. And they get a shot again against another lefty tonight. The White Sox are arguably the worst offense in baseball against right-handed pitching. By WRC plus, they are right in line with the Rockies. In fact, they have a 80 WRC plus. The Rockies are at 79. Against Southpaws, it's completely different. The offense shoots all the way up to 12th. They're the 12th best offense in baseball right now by WRC plus against lefties, 97. That's tied with Arizona. That's ahead of such offenses against lefties as the Padres, the Mets, the Cardinals, the Rays, who we just talked about. I'll go a step further. Setting random dates and arbitrary endpoints to support your argument can be kind of a slippery slope. But if you go back to the start of July, since the start of July, the White Sox have the best offense in baseball against left-handed pitching. A 138 WRC plus against lefties, 38% better than league average against lefties since the start of July. I'll put it another way, even simpler. People, might roll their eyes at something like WRC plus. In the month of July, they've had 257 plate appearances against left-handed pitching. They're hitting 284, 331, 542. That's an 873 OPS against lefties. Do you know who has an 873 OPS this year? Kyle Tucker. Every White Sox hitter this month, when facing left-handed pitchers, has been the equivalent of Kyle Tucker at the plate. Uh, you mentioned Jonathan Cannon. He's actually been pretty good for the White Sox over the last month or so since returning from injury. His last start was actually his worst in recent memory from a run prevention standpoint. He allowed 5 and 4 1/3 innings against Tampa, but he also struck out a career high 9 in that start, and also had a career high in whiffs in that game. And most importantly for someone like Cannon is he walked just 1 in 11 and third innings over his last 2 starts. The Philly offense obviously is very formidable. They could knock Cannon out of the game early. I think that he can hold things together well enough that the White Sox can do their thing against another mediocre left-handed starting pitcher. And yes, Jesus Luzardo right now is very mediocre. I'm betting this a couple ways. I'm going to hedge a little bit against the possibility that Cannon gets beat up or the White Sox very bad bullpen gets beat up by this Philly offense. So I'm betting White Sox first 5. That is my favorite bet. That's my official best underdog. White Sox first 5 at plus 155. I'll be splitting a unit between that and the full game at plus 170. And then I'll be throwing another unit on the over 8.5 or 9 if it jumps up there. I know it's been climbing, just in case, again, the Philly offense touches up Cannon. Because I think this White Sox offense against lefties right now, this is as formidable as it's looked in a while. They took 2 of 3 from Tampa. They obviously beat up another good lefty in Shota Imanaga last week against the Cubs. And again, with deadline watch on, Luis Robert, who has been better of late, could be on the move at any second. He could switch clubhouses. The Phillies are one of the teams that are potentially interested in his services, and he's one of their lefty mashers as well. But yeah, White Sox, go White Sox tonight.
Stamp of approval from you, Sean. Anything to add to the over or the White Sox to win outright?
Yeah, so Jesus Luzardo has been tipping pitches, and that's part of the reason he's gotten shelled in July. I've seen some videos of him coming set, fastball versus breaking ball, and the glove just like coming clearly off of his chest. And if you're a hitter at the plate, you could see daylight. He's coming set for the fastball, and he's here. He's coming set for the breaking ball, and he's like all the way out here. So there's like very obvious movement where he's coming set, fastball versus breaking ball. I think that's part of the reason he's gotten lit up. 18 innings, 18 hits, 16 runs in July. And it seemed very evident, against the Red Sox that they were able to tell he was tipping pitches. There's a video of, actually a very cool video shot from what looks like the away dugout of the pitcher of Luzardo and Alex Cora all in the same frame. And you could see Alex Cora like tipping, or Alex Cora showing the bench coach he's going to throw a slider. Sure enough, throws the slider. And I think Romy Gonzalez hit it for a home run. So very fun video to watch if you're into like the minutia of baseball and, coaches potentially picking up on not picking up on signs, but picking up on tips from opposing players. I was on this same over yesterday. I'm adding the White Sox money line today too, but the weather is like identical. Temperature identical. The wind though, blowing out today. Yesterday we had a cross breeze. Today, 5 to 6 mile an hour winds blowing out. There was a ball that died like at the edge. I think 2 balls that died at the edge of the warning track yesterday. We just needed one more run for that over. If either of those balls go about 10 more feet, we hit the over on that game without issue. Collin mentioned the White Sox elite splits versus lefties. Over the past 2 weeks, they're pushing closer to a 200 WRC plus against left-handed pitching. But even over the past 30 days, Collin mentioned, number one offense in baseball over the past 30 days against lefties. They're 12 points better than the next closest offense. They have a 139 WRC plus. The next closest team is at 127. So smoking left-handed pitching. And then the last piece here for the over, both of these bullpens are in the bottom 5 in expected FIP and strikeout minus walk. White Sox on the season. Phillies since the Jose Alvarado suspension. Since the Alvarado suspension, Phillies 24th, 23rd in those categories. And then also both teams awful defensively as well. White Sox 25th, Phillies 27th in DRS. Phillies a little bit better in OAA, but the White Sox also 25th in OAA. So I like betting on these teams who play bad defense to give up runs. I bet on the Angels over yesterday. If you watch the Angels and Rangers game, the Angels right fielder dropped a routine fly ball with 2 outs and the bases loaded to get the Rangers a couple of runs, which we ultimately needed to get that game home. So I think defense is hugely important. You don't normally get those very dumb routine mistakes like that, but not being able to get to batted balls Balls flying over your head in the outfield, giving runners extra bases, etc. Both of these teams are terrible at that. So I think when you have two bad defensive teams matching up, just giving free outs to your opponent, you're just likelier to hit the over. So I make this total about 9.3. I like the over 9 to minus 104, and I make the White Sox about plus 150. Could bet them down to plus 165.
All right, both of you guys are on game one in the doubleheader down at Camden Yards between the
Mm,
Oats and the Jays. Sean, you're on the game under of 10 and a
mm.
half, and Colin, you like under 4.5 Ks for Charlie Morton. Let's start there. Morton has averaged over 6 Ks per start this season, but he's a high variance strikeout pitcher. He went 9 straight starts without hitting 5 or more, then 6 straight over that total. And an interesting nugget here is that his pitch count has been on the rise. He's averaged 99 pitches across his last 5 starts. But I'm sure the opponent plays a huge part in you going with the under here because Toronto has the fewest strikeouts in the AL by a wide margin. Is that where you started with this handicap?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Morton is a dangerous pitcher to bet unders on. I've seen starts this year where he gets torched early, gives up 3 or 4 runs in the first or second inning, and you're like, oh, he's gone. We're not going to see any more of him. He's going to finish with 1 or 2 strikeouts or whatever. And the next thing you know, he's through the fifth or sixth inning. He's got 5 or 6 strikeouts, despite getting lit up when the opponents actually make contact with the ball. But yeah, I think Toronto's offense will be tough for him to get any length or rack up any strikeouts against. It should be noted that we probably won't see George Springer in the lineup tonight. Has been on an absolute tear for the last month or so and has had a good season overall. Had a scary hit by pitch to the head last night. Manager said after the game that he seems to be doing all right. I guess it grazed his shoulder before it hit him in the head. But I would not be shocked to see Toronto sit him out tonight. They're generally pretty cautious with Springer in normal injury circumstances, given his age, given his injury history. A day after getting hit in the head, not expect to see him in the lineup. But even without Springer, Springer's one of the more strikeout prone batters in this lineup, actually, for as good as he is. But this is just a tough lineup with tough at bats up and down the lineup from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They've gotten really surprising years out of guys like Nathan Lucas, like Ernie Clement, even Joey Loperfido. We've been seeing a little bit more of. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the guy in the lineup with Springer out tonight. And it just makes it difficult for pitchers. They're not just difficult to strike out, but they make their opponents throw a lot of pitches, which forces them out of the game earlier. Now, Morton is 41 years old and he is a workhorse. He's a guy who Baltimore's not going to be afraid to let throw 100 plus pitches. But I think that if he's laboring to get, having 25 pitch innings and not striking guys out, I think that we could see him come out of the game early. As you mentioned, he goes through these stretches where he's striking out a lot of guys and then not striking out a lot of guys. He's struck out 5 or more batters in 9 of 22 starts this season. He's done it in 4 of his last 7 starts, so I think that we're overinflating this a little bit to the over. These books aren't dumb. They know that Toronto is tough to strike out, but I do think that they are expecting a little bit too many strikeouts from Morton tonight against this kind of offense. So I like Toronto to wear him down, and I'll bet the under 4.5 strikeouts on Morton. Again, this is this afternoon's game. We probably should have led the show off with this. I hope that you're listening to this before the game starts, to this bet and Sean's bet as well. I think we're about like a 12:30 Eastern first pitch. So yeah, under Morton and then what Sean's on as well.
Yeah, let's look at that game under Sean. What else do you like there?
Yeah, it's going to be hot for this 12:35 start. You're going to see, if you look at the real field temperature, north of 100 degrees on the field, 104 real field, but humidity is low in 30% and higher than average air pressure in Baltimore today, both of which should suppress batted ball flight. So I do make this total closer to 9.85, but that is with Springer in the projected lineup. I'm really glad Colin called that out. I didn't realize he got hit yesterday. Springer has been an awful defender this year. He's -6 in defensive runs saved. The presumptive replacement for him would be Miles Straw, who's +3 in center field this year. So when you swap Straw for Springer, not only are you swapping out a much lesser bat or swapping out a much better bat for a much lesser bat, you're also swapping in a much better defender for a much lesser defender. So I make this 9.85 with Springer in the lineup and the Jays regular lineup minus Alejandro Kirk, who's currently on the IL, not in there. I'd make this closer to 9.5 if Straw is going to be in for George Springer. So yeah, under 10.5 to -115 for now, pre-lineups. Assuming lineups come out and Straw's in there instead, I like this down to 10 at -110. So definitely the under here in game one between the Jays and the Orioles. And it looks like Easton Lucas is going to start for the Jays. Made a bunch of starts early in the year, got hit in a couple of them, but also had a few starts where he was like really deceptive and throwing the ball well and has pretty good command. So a guy who's going to give himself a chance because he puts the ball in the zone, but is actually very deceptive, throwing a lot of breaking pitches and stuff. See if the Orioles could hit him, but he will give himself the best chance in this game.
All right, let's turn to your next bet here. The Rockies at almost 2-1 as an underdog. As we know, Sean, the Rockies have been breaking hearts in our sweet pool. They're now 6-4 in the second half, and they hand the ball to Tanner Gordon, who's been a pleasant surprise since his return from the oblique injury. 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 0 earned against the Cards in that outing off of the injured list. A win here would give them more road wins than home wins on the season, joining the Nats and Marlins as the only teams in the NL who can say that. Anything else that you like about the Rockies playing in Cleveland?
Yeah, it's only the second time I bet the Rockies on the road this year. I bet them last week on the road. We cashed that ticket. So hopefully we can make this 2-0. I thought it was very fitting that the Guardians blew a ninth inning lead the same day that Emmanuel Clase was suspended for gambling. No comment further on like why he was suspended or those videos that came out of him throwing very bad pitches in the dirt. But I make this game about +170. I like the Rockies down to +180. We got some good CLV here. Came down from +200 to +180. So last chance to get this number before it is out of range, I think, right now. I just think the Rockies have been playing well and they are undervalued at the moment. And the market has not caught back up to them being not the team that they were in the first half. That's largely my entire analysis of it. I did not bet them yesterday, but I do think there's value on them today at +180 or better.
I just wanna clarify for the sake of fairness that Emmanuel Clase was placed on paid leave as part of a gambling investigation. He has not been suspended yet for gambling. So just to cover all the bases and cover our asses, I guess. Clase has not been suspended for gambling just yet. But yeah, rough start to the closer job for Cade Smith.
But also, night. Like you're making millions of dollars. What is the liquidity in those first pitch markets? Like it doesn't make sense to me given the fact that you can put like $100 down, a couple of $100 down, and that's also going to be the first thing that gets flagged when it has like betting activity above the normal handle. It just seems like such a niche and ridiculous market to, as a professional athlete making millions of dollars, to be trying to make like some side cash off of. So very, very, very odd circumstance because I just do not see the potential liquidity or gain that you could have, even if you were doing something fishy and betting into those markets.
Yeah, that feels a bit like saying I'm not hungover, I'm just exhausted from staying up all night drinking. Like, there's you could make an argument which part are we trying to parse out here? But yeah, sure. I appreciate you getting to the finer points of exactly what's happening with him. Let's turn now to the Cubs, who are going off at about even money against the Brewers. Quinn Priester has been phenomenal for the Brewers. His strikeout rate has been on the rise, which when you pair it with his ability to induce ground balls is a real winning formula. So why the fade here against the veteran Colin Ray on the hill?
The Brewers used 7 different relief pitchers yesterday, including Uribe and McGill on consecutive days. Granted, McGill only threw 8 pitches across the past 2 days, but the Brewers essentially emptied out their bullpen yesterday behind the Miz to close out that game against the Cubs. I do give the Cubs a slight bullpen edge today. Normally, I would give the Brewers a pretty big bullpen edge. I think the Cubs have a rest advantage. Today, they only used 2 relievers, including, I think, Chris Flexen on Monday. So Cubs bullpen in a little bit better shape today. I make them -110 in this game. I would bet them at even money or better, even -102 is fine. Better offense. Offense projects about 10 points better in terms of WRC plus. Better defensively. Priester the advantage over Ray, but the Cubs bullpen swings it back the other direction over the final 4 innings for me. So normally, as I said, I would give the Brewers a pen edge. Not today, given how they deployed their pen on Monday. And I think, this is just like 2 coin flippy teams against each other. With the Brewers at home, I think the Cubs are the slightly better team. But with the Brewers at home, I think almost all of these games are coin flips. So happy to get plus money on the Cubs in a game that I make them basically pick them.
First the White Sox, then the Rockies. Let's make it another last place team on the money line today with the Pirates to take on the Giants and to win outright. They're at about plus 130 out there in the market. No faith in Verlander or something deeper with this matchup?
No faith in Verlander. We've arrived at the point of Justin Verlander's career where Bailey Falter projects as the better pitcher, or at least has the better underlying indicators. Bailey Falter's expected ERA is a half run better. Their expected FIP is basically the same. Strikeout minus walk rate, basically the same. 95 pitching plus for both guys. Bailey Falter, 4.3 body ERA. Justin Verlander, 4.74. So Verlander's cooked, but he's still throwing innings. He's still grinding out innings. The Giants, 2 days removed from a bullpen game, didn't go that deep into their bullpen last night. They tried to save it for today. So there is a comeback potential here with the Giants at the end of this game. But Pittsburgh is in their better split and the Giants in their lesser split. The Giants hit righties okay. Since the Devers trade, they're running a 110, 102 WRC plus against righties since the Devers trade. Against lefties, a 72 WRC plus since adding Devers to the lineup. 27th against left-handed pitching. So a big drop-off righty versus lefty for the Giants. The Pirates are the worst offense in baseball against both right-handed and left-handed pitching over the past month. Just terrible. But they have had moments where they've bursted and put together runs. They lit up. Oh, man, they beat a good team at home?
They swept the Tigers just
that
last
was the
week.
Tigers they swept. Thank you. And they put up a bunch of runs.
Yeah.
In that series too. So like, even though no matter how I slice up the splits, the Pirates rank terrible offensively, rank terribly offensively, I have bet on them a bunch of times recently where they've put up like 4 or 5 runs for me. So in my mind, internally, I feel like this team hits better than they actually do. But they're about 12, 13 points better against righties compared to lefties. So they actually give themselves a chance, and they are the better defensive team here as well, especially if Devers is going to be playing first base. I don't think he will, but he's an absolute train wreck at first base defensively right now. The Giants are basically just like letting him figure it out on the fly. But yeah, Pittsburgh top 10 team defensively, 6th in DRS, 7th in OAA. The Giants 23rd in OAA, 12th in DRS. Do you think they're closer to a league average team? Pirates actually project as closer to a top 5, top 10 unit. So I make this game plus 115. I would bet it down to plus 125. This was the one line that moved away from me in the overnight markets. I woke up and the Pirates were closer to plus 135 this morning. So just be a little careful with this game considering the market movement against. Maybe just stick with the first 5 bet going against Verlander. But I do like the Pirates in some way, shape, or fashion and fading Verlander today.
We can sound drop in the clip from Moneyball. It's easy to play first base. Tell them it's incredibly difficult to learn how to play first base. All right, let's look for the rest of your card here before we get to Grant Neiffer's dingers on Tuesday. You got 2 overs to hit. Let's start first with Boston and Minnesota over 8.5. Lucas Giolito just gave up 4 home runs to the Phillies in his last outing. Are you seeing the Twins keeping up this power hitting train, or is there a little bit more to this total under the hood?
So the Twins have not announced the starter yet. We have in our model Pearson Ole, who I've never heard of before reading his name in my model. He was a 14th rounder out of Grand Canyon University in 2021.
Go Antelopes. We respect our greater Phoenix area Antelopes, as always.
I'm not sure how many GCU alums have made it to the big leagues either. I'm curious to look into that. But, the scouting reports on this guy, good command, terrible fastball. He has an above average changeup. He has above average command. He has a 35 grade fastball. So probably going to get hit hard by major league pitchers unless that changeup, or by major league hitters unless that changeup is working very well. His FIP projections are about 4.5, 4.6. So a number 4 starter, slightly better than replacement level. Frankly, comparable to what Lucas Giolito has done this season. All of his ERA estimators are in the high 4s. I like this game to potentially go over late, though, because both the high leverage arms, the main high leverage arms for these teams, all through back-to-back games. Essentially, the Twins used Duran and Stewart on back-to-backs. Boston used Weissert, Bernardino, and Hicks on back-to-backs, and Chapman was throwing up in the bullpen on Sunday. Probably could have pitched last night if he was available. I don't think he was available, and I'm not sure if he's available tonight either. Should also mention there's the potential that the Twins deal Griffin Jax or Yohan Duran at some point today. And neither of those guys end up in their bullpen. So, yeah, I make this game about 9. I'm not actually sure what my exact projection here is. I think after I switched to Ole because I had a different pitcher in for the Twins last night, but I think I'm at about 9.4, and I like the over 9 to minus 105. I took 8.5 last night, but yeah, I don't think the starting pitching quality on either side is there. And once we get to a late game situation, the higher leverage reliever guys seem like they're down on both sides too. So pitching quality should be lower than average for this game.
Because this podcast isn't going to be long enough, I just wanted to note that there have been a lot of Grand Canyon University
Have
players in
there?
majors, including current AL Rookie of the Year co-favorite, third favorite, whatever. Jacob Wilson is a GCU guy. Most famous GCU MLBer of all time, though, is Tim Salmon.
Go
Wow.
Lewis,
Okay.
baby. Love that deep dive right there. All right, let's close things out with the Braves Royals over. Eric Fetty is in a rough patch, to put it lightly. 26 runs allowed across his last 17 and two-thirds innings worth of work. Seth Lugo on the other side has been the model of consistency, having avoided a loss going on 2 months now. Assuming we get some bad from Fetty, some good from Lugo, you like over 9.5. Talk me through this one.
Yeah, the Braves decided that their fans haven't been tortured enough this season, so they decided to trade for Eric Fede and Carlos Carrasco to stick them in a rotation with Bryce Elder, because who doesn't want to watch those guys start 3 out of every 5 games for their team? And oh, by the way, then you get Joey Wentz at a bullpen game on the 5th day. So Spencer Strider days, comfortable. The remaining week for the Braves, extremely uncomfortable, and we're probably going to be on a lot of Braves overs the rest of the way, because not only is their starting pitching awful, their offense is maybe finally healthy and clicking. Austin Riley homered yesterday, came back over the past week. Michael Harris, the reigning National League Player of the Week, has been awful this season, but the Braves 1 through 8 now look like they should have looked for the large majority of the year, except their pitching staff is much worse than it was supposed to be. So I think Braves overs could be something that we're on, more often than not the rest of the way. It's definitely like the Braves offense, but also Seth Lugo, I think, is just overperforming. He's got a sub-3 ERA, a 4.6 expected ERA, a 4.1 expected FIP. His location plus is down to a career low of 96. And in July, his pitch modeling metrics fell even further than where they have been for the season. 486 spot ERA, 88 pitching plus in July. So I'm actually not out, but I'm down on Seth Lugo compared to his ERA, compared to the fact that he just got a 2-year extension from the Royals. I think the underlying metrics say Seth Lugo is a guy to fade at the moment, and that he's a reduced version of the pitcher that we saw finish second in Cy Young voting last year. So I make this total about 10. I like the over 9.5 up to minus 110. And it is probably one of very many Braves overs we're on, at least in the immediate future, considering how their offense looks. I think this is the best the Braves offense has looked this year. So yeah, find some way, shape, or form to be betting on Atlanta's offense to finally score runs going forward.
Before we get out of here, let's toss it over to Grant Neiffer from Scores and Odds to bring us some of his favorite home run props for the day.
What's up, everyone? It's Tuesday, and DK is giving us a no-sweat parlay or just straight bet, but I'm using it on a 2-legger. Let's get right into it. Got 21.5 to 1 odds. First leg is Mike Trout going up against Patrick Corbin. Corbin has been better at suppressing righty power this season, but he's due for some negative regression. He still grades out as a plus matchup for righty power. And Mike Trout, while he hasn't been hitting the ball a ton, he's been hitting the ball hard this season, on pace for around 36 home runs per 162 game sample size. Obviously, he's been injured. He's not going to get that, but the power numbers are still there. He's still one of the best power bats in the league, and getting plus 330 odds are a little bit too high given the matchup versus Corbin. And for the second leg, we got Max Kepler. Kepler does not have a ton of bombs this season, only sitting at 11 through about 100 games, but I don't care. The underlying numbers are still good. 11% barrel rate, high hard contact, high fly ball rate, and he gets a matchup versus Jonathan Cannon. Cannon is a plus matchup, giving up around 1.5 home runs per 9. 2 lefties this season. He grades out as a very good matchup for lefty power, and the weather over in Chicago, great for hitting. 88 degrees during game time, 8-mile-an-hour wind blowing out. The ball should be flying, and Kepler is a good enough power bat to get it out in this matchup, especially when we consider the plus 425 odds. So parlay them together, 21.5 to 1 odds. Use that no sweat token. In worst case scenarios, you get a bonus bet back. That's what I've got today. I'm out of here. Bye, guys.
That'll do it for today's episode of Payoff Pitch. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to tail some of the bets you heard from Sean, Collin, or Grant, look for the quick slip links in the episode description. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the pod. Also check out the Action Network Discord. There's a link in the episode description of this podcast. We'll be back on Friday for more Major League Baseball best bets. For Sean Zerillo, Collin Whitchurch, and Grant Neiffer, I'm Mike Calabrese. Thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. And as always, best of luck with all your bets.